Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. In our last episode we talked about the awakening of Kino Loy, portrayed by the masterful Andy Serkis. In today's episode we'll be taking a look at the slow and methodic unraveling of Luthen Rael. This unraveling has reached a crescendo in episode 10 with the reveal of one of Luthen's moles within the ISB itself, Supervisor Lonnie Jung. We all knew it was possible that Luthen Rael had a few moles within the Empire, but I would have never guessed in a million years it was going to be Lonnie Jung. I mean, in these shots of him walking in the Coruscant underworld, I thought I was actually looking at General Hux for a second. Anyway, Lonnie just had a kid, and that's reshaped his view of the world. It's made him question his own mortality. I mean, it's easy to be reckless when you're alone in the world, but to have a wife, a child, people who depend solely on you for their happiness and survival, well, that changes things. Suddenly the risks that you used to take no longer seem worth it. Suddenly you have things that are important to you, so important that you're willing to spend all of your time and energy protecting them instead of trying to improve the world around you. You build a wall around yourself and your loved ones and let the world go to hell. Lonnie's had enough, and like every individual who is approached, recruited, pressured by Luthen Rael, the spymaster, Lonnie has a question for him.
And what do you sacrifice?
What has Luthen Rael sacrificed?
Everything!
The thing with Luthen Rael is from the very first moment we see him, it's clear that he's an individual who is keenly aware of every one of his own movements and how he presents himself. I call him a thespian not because he's a man who enjoys the theater or drama. I mean, he probably used to. But now it's only the acting part of being a thespian that Luthen Rael really focuses on. There's hardly any joy or life in his performance anymore. It's all cold and cunning, as it should be. Luthen Rael hardly ever reveals what he's actually thinking unless there's a reason for doing so. He's completely cutthroat and efficient. It's a result of the paranoia that stems from the risk of leading that double life he has. Luthen Rael, like someone who has severe social anxiety, is constantly self-regulating. He pays close attention to his own appearance and how that appearance affects the perception that others have of him. And so as a result, in every conversation we see Luthen Rael in, he only reveals a portion of his personality. And what he chooses to reveal is usually carefully calculated to help him get what he wants. And so we're gonna need to take a look at 4 different conversations that Luthen Rael has to truly understand him, because with a complicated individual like him, you're gonna need multiple data points to reference. You have to compare and contrast so that you can find repeating themes in all of these conversations. The truths that matter rather than the truths that are convenient for the moment in time for whatever crazy rebel Luthen is trying to convince to do something dangerous and risky. Before we continue, a quick word from our sponsor for today's video, ownersaber.com. They got some great Black Friday deals for you that will end on November 30th. For those of you who want to purchase just one lightsaber, check out our promo code PORG, that's all caps, P-O-R-G, for 20% off. If you guys buy 2 of any lightsabers, you'll get $100 off automatically at checkout, and if you buy 3, you'll get $150 off your entire purchase. Ownersaber.com has a great range of lightsabers, including dueling sabers that are great for sparring and heavy use, along with more premium and unique saber hilts and designs that are packed with functions and extremely beautiful to look at. Pair that with some robes, and impersonating a Jedi Knight has never been so easy. I have less than 16 items. You will give me plastic bags. You will bag my groceries in plastic. Check out the description down below if you want more information about this offer. And thanks again to ownersaber.com. It's because of sponsors like them that we're able to do these longer format videos we really enjoy doing, and that the algorithm does not. Well, thank you for your patience. On to the rest of the video. You will let me purchase something without using the bathroom. In his conversation with Cassian Andor, Luthen Rael's goals are simple. He wants to see if Cassian Andor is indeed the thief and infiltrator he needs for his operation. He uses the pretense of a black market sale of an Imperial navigation device to kick off this conversation. It's something he needs for sure, but it's not a main piece in his chess game against the Empire. It's Cassian Andor who he hopes will become one of those pieces.
I'll give you another 1,000 credits to tell me how you got it.
Poor Andor. He has no idea who he's talking to. Right now, this man is interviewing him for a job that will one day lead to his death. And Luthen Rael will just use money for now to keep him interested in what he has to offer.
Another 1,000.
Done. How?
Luthen Rael realizes his background research on Andor can only tell him so much. He really wants to know what motivates this thief. Is he just trying to make money, or is there something deeper inside of him? Cassian, on the other hand, has never seen so much money in his life, and at first he's distracted by how easy Luthen is willing to give it all away, and then he's surprised that Luthen actually wants to know how he did what he did.
You just walk in like you belong. Takes more than that, doesn't it?
Notice the tone that Luthen Rael uses here. He's not really inquiring. He's actually trying to lead Cassian Andor on. Look at his brows. They're not scrunched up in confusion. Instead, they're almost like pleading. He's imploring for him to go on.
Takes more than that, doesn't it?
What, to steal from the Empire? What do you need? A uniform, some dirty hands, and an Imperial toolkit.
Luthen allows Cassian to continue. He's patient. He wants Andor to let those emotions come to the surface so he can finally say what's actually on his mind.
They're so proud of themselves. They don't even care. They're so fat and satisfied. They can't imagine it.
Can't imagine what?
Do you see it now, that small smile on Luthen Rael's face?
That someone like me would ever get inside their house, walk their floors, spit in their food, take their gear.
The arrogance is remarkable, isn't it?
Luthen Rael turns away because he's heard what he's wanted to hear. He knows now that he's not here for the Starpath machine alone. He's here for Andor. From that point until he drops Andor off for the heist, Luthen spends the rest of their time together playing these same games, asking Andor questions, firing him up little by little so that he can finally come to his own conclusion that a man like him, an individual who's gone through so much hardship, so much suffering and oppression,
The sound of that voice telling you to stop, to go, to move.
that despite all of this, he still cares. He continues to try and do the right things for his friends, for his mother, for the people around him. The sad truth is, as long as the Empire is around, Cassian Andor will be in conflict, not only with the Empire that oppresses him, but with himself for allowing it to happen in the first place. Cassian really doesn't have any choice but to fight. His fate is already sealed. No matter how hard he tries to run away onto the beaches of Nymos, he'll continue to get pulled back.
Why would I go anywhere with you?
Don't you want to fight these bastards for real?
An authoritarian, an imperial officer with no checks and balances on his power will get lazy. He will order people around using the threat of force and punishment. He'll make people obey with fear. But people don't really obey those kind of orders, not in their heart at least. People who are oppressed with fear will turn around and devour their oppressors the second they slip and make a mistake and show they're weak. To lead by love, respect, and admiration, that creates a true type of loyalty, but that takes time and energy. Luthen Rael is in a rush, and so he utilizes something a bit different. So I recently had dinner with this guy who is the chief operations officer for a large New York City tour company, and I had this question to ask him. I can hardly manage myself. How do you manage so many people? And he told me, Helen, it's actually quite simple. It's about letting people come to a realization that what you want and what they want are the same exact things. And you do this by asking them questions, leading them to the conclusion that you've already come to, and letting them come to it by themselves. It's kind of like Inception. Now, truthfully, we don't learn much about Luthen Rael in these first scenes with Andor outside of his ability to insert ideas into Andor's head. And that's on purpose. Obviously, Tony Gilroy wants his most interesting character, the hub around which the entire rebellion now clearly is centered on, to slowly reveal his intentions. Only the most trusted and invested viewer gets to see this transformation in its fullest. Not the individuals who quit after the first 2 episodes bored them. But what we do learn from that first scene is that Luthen Rael is a bit desperate, and he takes a huge risk by taking Cassian Andor on. He knows that Cassian Andor is being actively hunted. I mean, he's willing to sacrifice his own cover and essentially the entire network by exposing himself for Cassian. He even brings a complete stranger that he's only done some minimum background checks onto his secret ship.
I'm not slipping, Leia. I've just been hiding for too long.
It's all different now. We're going loud. Vulnerability is inevitable.
I'm not slipping.
Clea, his assistant, his handler perhaps, is the only person he knows he can trust and can drop his guard around. The only time we ever see Luthen Rael truly worried and unsure of himself is during these moments in his shop, like in this scene on the eve of the Aldhani raid.
Thief, Andor. I wasn't careful.
You wanted this to happen. This is what it took.
I wanted it too much.
And who's to blame him? He's given up everything in his life for this one moment right here.
I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. They set me on a path from which there's no escape.
He gave it all up for the raid on Aldhani. He's been slowly, patiently collecting tinder, and now he just has one shot of turning this tiny spark into the fires of revolution. Interestingly enough, when Luthen Rael meets up with Saw Gerrera, he is the most open we'll see him with almost any other character aside from maybe Clea. The only lie that he tells Saw is the first thing he says to him.
So, my friend, the garrison at Aldhani, was that you?
I was just about to ask you the same thing.
It's a lie he'll tell Jung and Mon Mothma as well. It's more operational than it is personal when he lies to Saw. A gentleman never tells.
Playing behind the scenes, Luthen.
Aren't you tired of fighting with people who agree with you?
You come all this way to scold me? Or did you bring me some toys?
Rough individuals like to insult their close friends and praise their enemies. Luthen Rael and Saw Gerrera, well, they're very similar. They're both damned.
I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts.
And this man sitting in the cave before him is exactly that, a ghost, a dead man walking. The innocence that drove both of these individuals when they were young has long been replaced with hard, cold, sometimes cruel actions and purpose. The purpose they both share, and that is the destruction of this oppressive regime. The only difference is that Saw Gerrera will only fight for himself, for his own men, whereas Luthen Rael is more practical and wants everyone to join forces together.
Think of it. Think of Spellhouse in flames.
Luthen understands Saw's lust for killing Imperials, but this doesn't work necessarily that well here. And it's ironic, but Saw's mistrust of Anton Krieger is ultimately what saves him, allows him to live another day.
We know that there's a raid planned on the power station at Spellhouse. If Krieger attacks, they'll be waiting.
And if he doesn't, they'll know something's amiss.
They'll be slaughtered.
It's 50 men.
This is why Luthen Rael, in my opinion, is one of the best characters in all of Star Wars. He's one of the most realistic rebels I've ever seen. This is what rebellion actually looks like. I mean, most revolutions fail, either because of lack of willpower, organization, firepower, or the revolutions that do succeed, well, they become so tainted by the tyrants that they're fighting that they impose tyranny on the very country they're trying to free in the first place. This is why even though Luthen and Saw get along, Luthen understands that Saw is not the answer. Saw is instead Luthen's future, a man finally broken without anywhere to run, no true purpose to fight for. Saw is his future, just like Andor was his past. A man who's yet to have fully realized the cost of the path he started on. But Luthen knows now, he knows he's doomed.
I burned my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
Heroism and sacrifice in the moment is one thing, but knowing what's in store for you and then stubbornly fighting towards your own death, that is how legends are born. And Luthen Rael is not stupid. He's no longer selfish. He understands that the revolution must survive him. And so he's investing in people like Andor. But one of the greatest, most precious investments he's making is in Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma is really interesting here. I mean, at first glance, she seems like an elite, rich, wealthy woman, a politician who is a part of the Imperial Senate. And at first glance, it just seems like Luthen Rael needs her credits and her wealthy connections.
But I need to start planning if you're no longer coming through for us.
The money's there. It's just getting very dangerous to move it around.
But no, it's never as simple as that. Luthen Rael might not even know why he's grooming Mon Mothma for this position, and that might be because she's so different from him, and that might be why he's doing this. He wants diversity in this rebellion. Mon Mothma has her innocence, or at least her values, intact. She's a pacifist at heart, and she won't stomach the type of sacrifices that Luthen Rael has had to make with other people's lives. Well, she won't yet, at least.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
But Mon Mothma's clarity, her bright-eyed understanding of what rebellion, what the alliance to restore the Republic could one day represent is vital. In not only winning the war, but not plunging the galaxy back into tyranny once they've won. Mon Mothma is not Luthen's future, but she is the galaxy's future. But right now she is unable or unwilling to take the necessary actions to spark this rebellion, and that is where Luthen fits in.
I burn my decency for someone else's future. There will be no rules going forward. If you're not willing to risk your conscience, then surrender and be done with it.
To be noble, to be a hero, and be recognized for that is a lesser sacrifice than being the individual who has to do the tough things, the evil things one is required to do to fight such malevolence. It takes a complete doling of one's ego and acceptance that they will surely be remembered as a monster for their actions. Which is remarkable to see in Luthen Rael, because for a person to take on the call of revolution, they actually have to have a huge ego. I mean, they have to believe themselves to challenge the gods themselves, the tyrants that rule over the entire galaxy. It's crazy for Luthen Rael to have that ego and then be able to discard it.
Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude.
Forget the Jedi, forget the Sith. Here is an ordinary person with no connection to the Force. Yet he's able to break free of his chains. He's able to find peace in the fact that he'll never have serenity again in his life. Luthen and Clea for sure underestimate Mon Mothma, but their worries are misplaced because despite her innocent appearance, naive avoidance of violence, the woman is a senator, a politician. And having met and interviewed many senators and also actors, I gotta say there's not that many differences between these two professions. The higher level politician you meet, the more pressed their suits and dresses are, the more professional their hair and makeup is, the more expensive their shoes are. The better they are at delivering lines. Actor, spies, politicians, they all use the same skills and traits. And what's so powerful about Luthen Rael is that every individual he touches, he'll change. In our last video, we talked about how Luthen's words emboldened Andor, and in prison on Narkina 5, Andor switches roles with Luthen and he inspires Kino, who then inspires the whole prison and starts a revolution. And Luthen Rael has also passed on lessons to Mon Mothma, and she has the skills to make an excellent operative.
Smile. I've learnt from Palpatine. I show you the stone in my hand, you miss the knife at your throat.
She just needs to build a stomach for the loss and suffering that her actions will surely cause the galaxy. And finally, we have Lonnie. He's gonna be a problem. He was probably brave once when he first signed that oath, or naive and stupid like many rebels are. But everything he says, the way he pleads to Luthen Rael, how he misreads the situation, how he misunderstands how deep he is in this cause.
You've become a father. It's not worth mentioning.
It's not fair. Do you ever think how it might feel from my side?
I think about you constantly.
It shows us that Lonnie is incapable. He will falter, which in this profession means he's doomed. His position within the ISB is important for sure, and it's surprising he's made it this far. But that's more likely because of Luthen Rael not using his intel to burn him. Luthen doesn't trust Lonnie at all. Not only because he lies about not taking part in the Aldhani raid, he lies to everyone about that. It's more because of how he responds to Lonnie's cry for recognition.
It means nothing to you, does it?
Your investment in the rebellion is epic. We need heroes, Lonnie, and here you are.
I laughed when I saw this scene. I love the fact that Luthen Rael does not even try to hide the bullshit in his tone. When he delivers this line, he clearly is going to kill him. He's mocking Lonnie here. He's commending the man for doing the same exact thing he does himself on a daily basis. There's no pity, no feeling of concern. All he sees is a liability. Don't make the mistake of thinking Luthen Rael is a good man, for he's not. In his world, such arbitrary descriptions of personality are meaningless and do not affect his behavior at all. We're all born relatively clean, our souls untarnished unless we're dolphins. And with each encounter with terror and tragedy, we become more and more stained. Men like Saw, men like Luthen Rael, men like Andor, they are all doomed, for those who partake regularly in death will find an early grave. And again, around men like Lonnie, who are basically ghosts, Luthen Rael can be open. He can pour his heart out.
I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice?
That is the saddest line in a very powerful speech that fills me with sorrow when I listen to it. Because it speaks a profound truth of war, of conflict, of revolution, and everything that comes with it. A truth that Andor seems to understand so intimately, which is why I love this show so much. It's the first Star Wars show that doesn't glorify the deaths of rebels. It leaves you feeling sickened and disheartened by the sacrifices that these people have to make. No one remembers Nemik or Skeen or Taruman, Lieutenant Gorn, except for, Star Wars YouTubers who really like lore. No one ever warns young men like Luthen Rael when they head off to war. No one told them that his life would be forfeited the moment he took up this cause. So many people nowadays are willing to use violence to attack at the slightest hint of hardship, at the slightest disagreement with another person. The old Star Wars was guilty. It brainwashed us with bullshit versions of the rebellion, a dozen X-Wings for a battle station, a lightsaber duel with the enemy's champion for a clean and precise end to the war. Now, revolutions are terrible. Most rebels die or are imprisoned without fanfare, crushed and forgotten. But revolutions are necessary at the same time, and they can be worth it. They're worth it, as we saw in Arcana 5. They are worth it, as we saw on Jedha. So don't go looking for revolutions, because I assure you, when things get hard enough, when life gets difficult enough, revolution will find you.